Hello, everybody. I apologize if I have any background noise. My brother is talking here in the basement. But let's talk about some more history today. I was gonna make a video about the Ukraine war, but then I decided, man, I didn't really like the takes I had, so might as well. I'll keep that one to myself because I think it's kind of a bad take, but I don't really have a better one. So yeah. Anyway, we dove into the U.S. Civil War and how it's more like an independence war with the South, and I also rambled on about how I don't like the South. I'm gonna get more back into the history side of things, less of my opinion. I kind of want to talk about how important is the American Revolution on a global scale. Like obviously in America, it's like a really big part of our history that we teach in schools. But in other nations, like even Britain, it's just kind of like they don't even really mention it because there's a lot of stuff. They might mention it, but there's just not a lot of stuff going on during that time. Like there's so much stuff happening during that era for Britain. Like not even that long after that, the French Revolution happened, and that created Napoleon, which that dominated European history for like over a decade. And just that one guy, right? So what really what nations really care about the American Revolution? France might teach about it a little bit because they were involved, they invested into us. But other than that, like, it's a primarily, of course, it's the American Revolution. But we make it such a big deal here in America, talk about our founding fathers, like, oh yeah, just remember 1776 British guy, yeah. They don't give a damn. It wasn't. I mean, like when we seceded, that wasn't even the height of the British Empire. The height came after we gained our independence and seceded from Britain, which is very interesting to think about. That such a large colony, like the 13 colonies, just left the empire and then they got stronger afterwards. I mean, in terms of like the Victorian era colonizing India and exploiting India, which is a bad thing. They lot that harmed millions of people for sure. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny that we make it such a big deal here in America. Of course, it's the creation of our nation, so I guess it does make sense. And other nations just don't care at all. They, I mean, it's just not all that important to them. I mean, like, at least surprised me is Britain. I've already talked about it because they have a bunch of other stuff going on during that time. So like in class, they're not going to learn about it because usually history classes, go in order of, in different eras. That's how they section up their units or their chapters or whatever. But it is very interesting that it gets split up like that. How I guess that era would be like conclude the 7 Years' War, the Napoleonic Wars, early Victorian era, like slight split industrial revolution, Victorian era, and a bunch of other colonization and stuff in British history. That losing the 13 colonies is just a footnote, pretty much. In America, it's like the creation of our nation, so we love it and care about it so dearly. I think it's also interesting that other nations don't really teach it as much. But to be fair, we don't teach much about other nations in America. We focus on U.S. history, U.S. history, U.S. history, which we are in America, so makes sense. But I think really what it is a sign that every nation, 4 minutes in video, finally getting to the point, every nation should diversify their what they teach about their history instead of just focusing on themselves. Because I feel like it is important to see the history of globally and not just per nation. And of course, every history book it should at least teach very thoroughly about World War II and the rise of Nazism and the rise of fascism in Italy and other nations. But we don't really, I don't know. Like we do that, but I feel like it'd also be important to talk about how monarchs just kind of lost most of their power over a short period of time and how that's such a major cultural shift. Because think about it. I mean, for centuries, it was monarchs had power. They had all the power. They were the government. It was kings. It was queens. It was emperors, empresses. You know, Basilius, or however you say it in Greek. Um, sure, there were republics, few and far between. But nowadays, everything's basically a republic or some sort of it, because nowhere is actually really a democracy, because that word has lost its original meaning. Because democracy would mean we vote on every single issue. I think Australia might actually do that a little bit, so maybe I'm wrong on that one. But yeah, most nations are republics now, and there's the dictatorships and monarchies are few and far between. So it's very interesting to think about as well. How we should, in that era, I guess, would been how that transitioned would be the early 20th century, or yeah, or late 19th century. Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, we should just diversify what we teach, what nations we learn about everywhere, because then it would really help out seeing how the future could go and seeing future cultural shifts that can happen. Because I feel like there might not, maybe not very soon, maybe not even in my lifetime, but we could very well potentially see some cultural shifts like that. I think it's very important to have people know about the previous ones so they can further understand the ones in the future. And yeah, that's about it, I guess. I feel like nations should diversify what they learn. And I think it's interesting that no, Britain doesn't care about the American Revolution. So yeah, I guess that's about it. See ya. Take moist critical. Oh.